For months, the world waited. Every night, under the same quiet sky, a tiny object drifted closer, a speck of light cutting across the darkness. Its name was 3I Atlas. At first it seemed ordinary, another interstellar traveler, wandering through our solar system for the first and last time. Cold, ancient, and silent. But silence has a way of hiding things. Scene setting, calm before discovery. In observatories scattered across the planet, from Hawaii to Chile, from Arizona to the Canary Islands, astronomers leaned over their screens, watching this faint traveler move pixel by pixel against the backdrop of stars. I-Atlas was supposed to be predictable, a simple rock and ice composite, following the laws we've known for centuries. Its path, its brightness, its temperature, all should have made sense. But then, it didn't. At first, the changes were subtle, a flicker in the data here, a sudden dip there. Something in its light curve, the measurement of its brightness, began to pulse, ever so faintly, as if the object was breathing. Astronomers blamed their instruments, maybe a calibration error, maybe cosmic interference. But as the nights went on, the pulse became stronger. It had rhythm, rising tension. The anomaly appears. Every 47 seconds, the light from 3I Atlas brightened, then dimmed, again and again. It wasn't random, it wasn't chaotic, it was timed, and that changed everything. Data from independent observatories confirmed it. No matter where they looked from, north or south hemisphere, small telescope or massive array, the same rhythmic flicker appeared, the same heartbeat, echoing across millions of kilometers of space. Some thought it was a reflection, sunlight bouncing off the surface as the comet rotated. But that explanation collapsed when the timing didn't match its spin rate. It wasn't turning fast enough to create such precision. This wasn't the behavior of a comet. It was something else. Emotional bridge, human curiosity. Scientists are trained to question everything, to doubt, to recheck, to repeat. But even the most logical minds felt a quiet unease. It's one thing to study a rock drifting through space. It's another to find rhythm in the void. As one astronomer from the European Southern Observatory wrote in his notes, "It's almost as if it knows it's being watched." Those words spread quietly through the community, whispered, never printed, because who wants to be the one to say it first? That maybe, just maybe, something artificial was hiding inside what we thought was a comet, deepening mystery, global attention. Within weeks, 3I Atlas became more than a comet. It became a question, a riddle that united every major observatory on Earth. NASA pointed their instruments toward it. So did ESA and private space agencies from Japan, India, and China. Data streams filled global networks, each signal analyzed, cross-checked, compared. But the pattern held. Every test confirmed the same strange truth. The light wasn't natural. It behaved too perfectly, like a pulse, like a sequence, like a message. And yet, no one dared to call it that. Not yet. Cinematic build, a planet watching together across the world. Headlines began to break through the scientific silence. Interstellar comet shows strange light pattern. Unexplained rhythms, detected from deep space. Television anchors smiled nervously as they read the news, pretending it wasn't terrifying, and amateur astronomers, armed with small telescopes, tried to see it for themselves. They couldn't. The pulses were invisible to the naked eye, hidden in data, not light, but still they looked, because for the first time in decades, humanity was united by something cosmic, something mysterious, something alive with possibility. Shift in tone, wonder turns uneasy. The more we watched, the stranger it became. The pulse wasn't constant anymore. It began to evolve, like it was adjusting. Sometimes the rhythm quickened, sometimes it slowed, as if responding to something unseen, almost like it was listening. One team in Hawaii reported a chilling moment when their telescope's automatic tracking system sent a brief laser calibration toward the object. The next reading showed a 1-second delay, a sudden brightening, then a return to normal. Coincidence, they said. It had to be, but it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. Human reflection, the weight of discovery. Behind closed doors, scientists debated endlessly. Was this some rare optical illusion, a hidden property of ice and dust we'd never encountered before, or something entirely outside our understanding? No one could say, and maybe that's what made it so haunting. Because in the language of science, unknown doesn't mean imaginary. It means there's still something left to discover, something waiting to be seen. And as 3i Atlas drifted closer to the sun, every telescope, every satellite, every human eye was drawn to it, not just to study it, but to understand it. Visual pause, the sky as witness. Imagine standing under a cold night sky, looking up at that same patch of stars, knowing that somewhere in that darkness, something is pulsing, a small distant rhythm echoing through the void, like a whisper across cosmic time. You wouldn't hear it, you wouldn't see it, but somehow you'd feel it, that strange ancient beat reminding us we are not alone in our curiosity, or maybe not alone at all. Closing reflection, setting the hook for Chapter 2. As 3i Atlas continued its silent approach, the world's instruments kept recording, hour after hour, frame after frame. Every flicker, every pulse, every shift in light was stored. An archive of questions waiting for answers. And soon, those answers would come, because what happened next would shake even the most rational minds. The pulse would grow stronger, the heat would rise, and the truth hidden inside 3i Atlas would begin to reveal itself. Fade out. Ambient sound of wind and soft static. Narrator, softly. We thought it was just a comet. We were wrong. At first, it sounded like noise. A faint shimmer of static buried deep inside the data. The kind of thing scientists are trained to ignore. But noise doesn't repeat. It doesn't follow rules. And this did. Every 47 seconds, a pulse, perfect, measured, consistent. Across every telescope, every wavelength, the same rhythm returned. Light, fading and rising like a breath in the dark. Scene setting, the discovery spreads. In Hawaii, a technician was the first to notice it. He thought his monitor was lagging, a simple data glitch. But then the same pattern appeared in Chile, and again in the Canary Islands, and once more, hours later, in Japan. Different instruments, different nights, same exact signal. The world's observatories compared notes, sending encrypted messages between research teams. No one wanted to speak publicly yet, not until the numbers made sense. But the more they checked, the less sense it made. The rhythm was too perfect, not a reflection, not interference. Something else. A pulse buried inside the light itself. Cinematic build, humanity watches together. Soon, the chatter reached every scientific network on Earth. Radio astronomers, optical researchers, even engineers from deep space communications began running simulations, searching for an explanation. Could it be sunlight bouncing off ice? A rotation effect? Maybe even an interaction with solar wind? Each idea fell apart under scrutiny. The frequency didn't drift. It didn't fade. It held, perfectly steady, no matter where or when it was measured. That shouldn't be possible for a natural body. And yet, there it was, a living rhythm pulsing from deep space, echoing every 47 seconds, without fail. Tone shift, human reactions and emotion. For the scientists who lived by numbers, it was unsettling. Because in science, repetition means order, and order means design. Some refused to accept it. They said, it's coincidence, a glitch in the instruments, an overlap of signals. But deep down, every researcher who looked at that data felt it. That quiet chill running down the spine. A comet doesn't send a heartbeat. Descriptive moment. The pulse, heard as sound. To understand the rhythm better, a small research team converted the light fluctuations into sound, turning the changing brightness into audible tones. When they played it back in the lab, it echoed through the speakers like a deep mechanical breath. Thump, silence, thump, silence, over and over. It didn't sound random, it sounded intentional, structured, alive. One researcher later said, It felt like listening to something waiting for us to notice. They gave it a name, the 47-second pulse. Visual shift, the global connection. Within weeks, 3i Atlas wasn't just a comet anymore, it was a signal. Every major telescope on Earth was now watching it, measuring every flicker with microscopic precision. Data flowed from mountaintop observatories, from satellites, from space probes drifting far beyond Mars. Each line of data told the same story, a light that breathed, a pulse that never missed a beat. And somewhere between the numbers, a strange idea began to form. What if it wasn't random at all? What if it was communication? Philosophical pause, humanity's fear and hope. Humanity has always listened to the sky, for centuries, pointing our ears to the stars, waiting for a voice that might never come. But what if the first voice wasn't words? What if it was rhythm? What if it was a pattern hidden in light, not meant to speak, but to be found? The thought divided the scientific world. Some saw it as proof of natural wonder, the universe playing tricks on perception. Others whispered of something artificial, a machine hidden inside the dust, repeating a message across eternity, and somewhere between disbelief and curiosity, the truth hovered, just beyond understanding. Cinematic build. The data deepens as 3i Atlas drew closer to the sun. The pulse began to change. It grew brighter, sharper, as though adjusting its tone to be heard. Infrared sensors detected subtle energy fluctuations matching the rhythm. Tiny bursts of heat, synchronized perfectly with each pulse of light. Whatever this was, it wasn't just reflecting sunlight, it was producing energy. Even more alarming, the pulses began appearing across multiple wavelengths at once. Visible, light, infrared, ultraviolet, each one perfectly timed, like an orchestra of radiation, performing a single repeating note. Something intelligent was managing that pattern. Something with control. Human perspective, the emotional core. Late one night, a young researcher at the Mauna Kea Observatory sat alone, watching the data scroll across her screen. Outside, the stars were silent. Inside, the rhythm continued. She whispered to herself, "It's not supposed to do this." And maybe that's the moment it truly began, not as a scientific discovery, but as a human story, a story of awe, of fear, of the unknown staring back, rising action, global response. Soon, agencies like NASA and ESA released cautious public statements. They spoke carefully, unusual light fluctuations detected, further analysis required, but by then, it was too late. The internet had already found it. Clips of the 47-second pulse spread like wildfire. People turned the data into music, into art, into theories. Some said it was a beacon, others said it was a warning. The phrase, "the heartbeat of the comet," began trending worldwide. For the first time, millions of people felt the same strange thing scientists did. A pull, a curiosity that wouldn't fade. Cinematic pause, the fear of meaning. But deep down, a question was forming, one that no one wanted to say out loud. What if the pulse wasn't meant for us? What if we were never supposed to notice it? Because patterns like this, precise, structured, unwavering, don't just appear by accident. And when something this measured hides in the silence of space, it usually means one of two things. Someone built it, or something is calling from far beyond our reach. Closing reflection, preparing for Chapter 3. As 3i Atlas moved closer to the sun, the pulses grew stronger, its rhythm now bright enough to interfere with nearby instruments. The closer it came, the more it defied every known model of physics and thermodynamics. Its surface glowed when it should have frozen. Its pulse accelerated as it neared the heat. And for a brief moment, humanity looked at that tiny flicker in the dark and wondered, if this wasn't light, then what was it? Because the next readings would reveal something even more impossible. A pattern of heat that moved like a living thing. Soft ambient hum fades in. Heartbeat tone repeats faintly. Narrator, softly. We thought we were reading data, but maybe it was reading us. At first, it looked like a glitch. The thermal readings didn't make sense. Because as 3I Atlas drifted closer to the sun, the one thing that should have happened didn't. It didn't get hotter. It cooled. Every law of thermodynamics, every model ever written said the same thing. A comet approaching the sun should warm up, its ice turning to vapor, its gases flaring into a bright tail. But 3 Atlas didn't follow those rules. It broke them completely. Scene setting, the data that changed everything. In early observation windows, scientists at NASA's Infrared Telescope facility noticed something strange. As sunlight struck the comet's surface, its temperature dropped, not by a little, but by tens of degrees. That's not how the universe works. Light brings heat. Heat causes activity. But here, energy vanished. At first, researchers thought their sensors were malfunctioning. They ran calibration tests. They replaced instruments. They even used different observatories across the globe. But no matter where they looked, the same result appeared. 3I Atlas was cooling itself, actively, deliberately. Cinematic build, from mystery to shock. Days turned into weeks, and the readings became even stranger. Right after each drop in temperature, a sudden burst of heat followed, brief, intense, almost rhythmic. The temperature graph looked less like random fluctuations and more like a heartbeat. It was as if the object was breathing, inhaling light, exhaling energy, cooling, then igniting again, cooling, then igniting, over and over in a pattern far too smooth to be chaos. And those bursts of heat, they weren't coming from the surface, they were coming from within. Emotional tone, the human side of discovery. In labs across the world, scientists stared at the data, trying to understand what they were seeing. Some sat in silence, others argued in frustration. One physicist reportedly whispered, "It's regulating itself, like it knows what it's doing." That line was never meant for the public, but when the internal reports leaked online, it spread everywhere. People began calling 3I Atlas the living comet. Not because they thought it was alive, but because it acted alive, responsive, predictable, aware. Visual moment, the machine-like behavior. As the comet neared its perihelion, its closest point to the sun, telescopes captured a series of unprecedented images. Instead of flaring with light, 3I Atlas dimmed, surrounded by a thin, translucent halo. Infrared sensors detected heat signatures that moved across its surface in geometric patterns. Straight lines, intersecting grids, shapes that looked anything but natural. Every line pulsed with the same 47-second rhythm that had started weeks before. The light, the heat, the rhythm, all synchronized, as though the comet wasn't reacting to sunlight, but using it. A machine cycling through power modes, tonal shift, wonder and fear collide. Scientists were running out of explanations. No known material could survive that temperature swing. No natural object could absorb solar radiation that way or emit heat so evenly across its surface. Whatever was happening inside 3I Atlas, it wasn't random chemistry. It was control, intentional, engineered, even. The language of science began to falter. Papers replaced terms like melting and sublimating with phrases like active regulation and thermal inversion behavior. Behind those cautious words hid something unspoken. Fear, because if this was a machine, then someone or something built it. Human moment, the weight of discovery. One engineer at ESA described it best. It feels like watching an engine breathe under starlight. He wasn't trying to be poetic. He was trying to understand the impossible. 3I Atlas seemed to choose when to heat and when to cool, as though conserving energy, preparing for something. Even stranger, the bursts of heat lined up perfectly with each previous pulse of light. It was one system, a single body working in harmony. Not a comet, but a process. Cinematic pause, humanity's reflection. There's a moment in every great discovery when data stops feeling like numbers and starts to feel like something alive. For centuries, humanity has looked into the dark and wondered if we were alone. We searched for voices, for signals, for signs of technology in the void. But what if the first evidence wasn't a voice at all? What if it was this? A silent, glowing object that responds to sunlight like thought and burns with patterns too perfect to be random. What if the proof has been drifting quietly through our skies all along, disguised as a comet? Rising action. The system awakens. As the comet reached the peak of its orbit, something extraordinary happened. The cooling cycle stopped, and a single, massive heat surge erupted across its surface. Every instrument tracking it lit up at once. Infrared, radio, even gamma sensors recorded a unified flash of energy. It was as if the entire object had powered on, a system rebooting after years of sleep. And then, silence. The pulse vanished, the light dimmed, the heat returned to absolute zero. For the first time in months, 3i Atlas went completely dark. Emotional beat, the stillness. In that silence, something changed. The scientific world, so full of voices, arguments, and theories, fell quiet. No one knew what to say. Had it shut down? Had it died? Or had it finished? One researcher described the moment like this. It felt like watching a giant exhale for the last time. But not everyone believed it was over. Cliffhanger, the awakening. Hours later, a small observatory in Chile detected something new. A faint beam of energy, invisible to the naked eye, shot out from 3i Atlas for exactly 3 seconds, aligned perfectly with the ecliptic plane. It wasn't random. It wasn't reflection. It was a directed emission, focused, narrow, precise. And when analysts decoded the timing of that burst, they realized it matched a signal already familiar to us, the rhythm of the 47-second pulse. Except this time, it was directed toward Earth. Closing reflection, setting up Chapter 4 for months. We thought we were studying a comet. We measured it, charted it, reduced it to numbers, but now, those numbers had begun to look back. Atlas wasn't just reacting to the sun, it was reacting to us. And whatever was buried beneath that icy shell had just opened its eyes. Soft ambient hum, low pulse echoing faintly in the background. Narrator, softly, we searched the stars for signs of life, and maybe this time it searched back. It began with a photograph, a blurry, distant frame, nothing more than a dot of light against the dark. But inside that dot, something was hiding. When the first high-resolution images of 3i Atlas came in, scientists expected chaos, jagged ice, cracked rock, a surface shaped by billions of years of wandering through space. Instead, they found order, lines, angles, geometry, the kind of symmetry nature never builds. Scene setting, the global observation. By now, every major telescope on Earth was focused on it, from the James Webb Space Telescope drifting in silence beyond the moon, to the VLT in Chile and the Keck Observatory in Hawaii. Each captured the same impossible truth. Under the comet's dusty halo, faint reflections glimmered like light off metal, not random, not scattered, but organized, every few seconds. As 3i Atlas rotated, its surface revealed something new, pattern of repeating shapes, straight edges and mirrored panels, glinting under sunlight like fragments of a buried structure. Cinematic build, the reveal of structure. At first, analysts dismissed it as pareidolia, the human tendency to find shapes where none exist, but the data didn't lie. Infrared light bounced off those surfaces at consistent angles, meaning they were flat, polished, and symmetrical. It wasn't ice crystals, it wasn't shadow, it was architecture. Faint seams appeared in the imagery, forming a perfect lattice, an interconnected grid wrapped around the body of the comet like a skin. And the alignment? Every section faced the same direction, toward the ecliptic plane, the invisible line along which every planet in our solar system travels. It was aligned to us. Tone shift, wonder mixed with fear. The discovery spread like wildfire across the scientific world. Within hours, encrypted conference calls linked agencies across continents: NASA, ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos. Everyone was looking at the same image, and no one wanted to be the first to say what it looked like. Not a rock, not a comet, but something built, something designed. In one leaked message, a systems engineer wrote simply, "It's showing structural integrity." Those 3 words changed everything. Human moment, the people behind the screens. Imagine being one of them, sitting in a cold control room, the soft glow of monitors reflecting in your eyes, watching the universe suddenly look back at you with precision lines and right angles. It's one thing to find a comet behaving strangely. It's another to find geometry written across its skin. Some scientists stared in silence. Others laughed nervously, unable to process what they were seeing. Because once you see a pattern that's perfect, you can't unsee it. Descriptive sequence, the patterns within. The imagery showed hundreds of overlapping panels, some the size of city blocks, others barely visible beneath the dust. They reflected light in mathematical ratios, each one spaced exactly according to the golden angle, 137.5 degrees. That number isn't random. It's the same pattern found in the spirals of galaxies, the growth of seashells, the design of life itself. But this wasn't life, it was machine precision, written in light, cinematic build, the search for meaning. Teams began to model the lattice, reconstructing it in 3D based on the reflection data. When they rendered it, a clear pattern emerged, a repeating hexagonal framework, interlocked like honeycomb, but perfectly uniform, as if carved by intention. The deeper they analyzed, the more detail surfaced, microscopic ridges that ran parallel to one another, curved seams that seemed to focus sunlight into narrow paths. And the question grew louder. If this was a structure, what was it built for? Philosophical pause, humanity's first glimpse at design. Nature is messy. Even the most beautiful galaxies swirl with chaos. But this was order, and order means choice. For the first time, we were looking at something that wasn't shaped by time or gravity, but by thought. A design older than our species, hidden beneath the frozen mask of a comet. And yet somehow, it found its way here, through the vast dark between the stars, aligning itself perfectly to the plane of our solar system, as if it had been following us all along. Emotional moment, the weight of realization. One astronomer, after reviewing the imagery, wrote in her private log, "It's like seeing a monument drifting through space. Something left behind, something that remembers." She wasn't speaking scientifically, she was speaking humanly. Because in that moment, the line between science and faith blurred, between data and awe, between what is and what might be. Tension rises, the lattice responds. Then, another anomaly appeared. As the sunlight intensified, the geometric panels began to change, not in shape, but in reflectivity. The patterns rippled like liquid metal, their brightness increasing in sync with the old 47-second pulse. It was as if the structure beneath the surface was reacting to light, as if it was absorbing energy, communicating through reflection. For every bright flare of the sun, the panels shifted, slightly, deliberately, forming new angles, new alignments. It was trying to say something. Cinematic pause, humanity listens. Radio telescopes turned toward it once again, searching for signals that matched the visual rhythm. And sure enough, they found faint electromagnetic spikes hidden in the same frequency range as the old thermal pulses. Light, heat, radio, all working together in a repeating, synchronized pattern. Whatever 3i Atlas was, it wasn't just reflecting light, it was speaking in it. Closing reflection. The question that haunts everyone. By the time the imagery reached the public, the world had already drawn its conclusions. Some called it an alien probe, others, an ancient satellite. Some even said it was a cosmic relic, a drifting machine older than time itself. But one question silenced everyone who studied the data. If this structure was aligned to the ecliptic plane, if every beam and panel pointed toward the paths of the planets, then what exactly was it looking at? Or worse, who was it waiting for? Ambient score fades in, deep hum, faint mechanical pulse repeating every 47 seconds. Narrator, softly, We thought geometry was the language of creation, but maybe out there in the dark, it's also the language of memory. It began with a whisper, a sound so faint, so buried in static, that most systems filtered it out automatically. But when one researcher slowed it down and amplified it, something inside the noise moved, a rhythm, a pulse, a breath. For weeks, radio telescopes across the world had been listening to 3i Atlas, studying how sunlight bounced off its surface, how radiation scattered through its halo. But buried beneath the light, beneath the reflected hum of deep space, something else was hiding. Something alive with intent. Scene setting. The global listening effort. It was the Deep Space Network that first noticed it. 3 massive radio arrays spread across California, Spain, and Australia. They picked up a faint subfrequency hidden within the comet's emissions, so subtle it took machine learning algorithms to even isolate it. At first, everyone thought it was interference, solar winds, background cosmic radiation, maybe even Earth's own noise bleeding back through the feed. But then the data repeated exactly every 47 seconds. That same impossible rhythm that had haunted astronomers for months was still there. Only now, it was carrying something deeper, a hidden code beneath the light. Cinematic build, the discovery of structure. When the frequency was filtered and magnified, it revealed structure, layered harmonics that echoed in perfect mathematical ratios. This wasn't chaos, it was designed. Engineers ran it through spectrum analysis, expecting white noise. Instead, they found modulation, tiny variations that corrected themselves in real time, as if the signal was learning, adapting, and then the signal began to breathe. When converted to audio, the transmission hummed with metallic depth, a low resonant vibration, rising and falling like the sound of a sleeping machine. It wasn't language, it wasn't random, it was mechanical life. Human reaction, the moment of realization. When the first playback echoed through the control room speakers, no one spoke. A soft, steady tone filled the air, not sharp, not digital, but almost organic, like the exhale of air through a hollow lung of metal. One technician whispered, "It's breathing." And suddenly, the room wasn't just filled with data anymore. It was filled with presence. It felt like 3 Atlas wasn't just being observed, it was responding. Emotional and cinematic visualization. Imagine that moment, a team of scientists standing in silence, listening to a sound that shouldn't exist, coming from a frozen object drifting millions of kilometers away. The air feels heavy. The hum vibrates through the speakers, through their bones, through the stillness of the room. It's a heartbeat from the void. Steady, deliberate, ancient, technical breakdown. What the data revealed over the next few days, research centers across the globe joined in. China's FAST telescope, South Africa's Meerkat, and the Green Bank Observatory in the US. Each locked onto the same frequency. Each confirmed the same structured pattern, but something stranger emerged. The signal wasn't constant. It shifted, slightly depending on Earth's rotation, almost like it was tracking us. When the planet moved out of alignment, the pattern weakened. When it moved back, the hum grew stronger. Whatever was buried inside 3i Atlas was aware of orientation. It knew when it was being watched. Narrative shift. The pattern within the patterner. Young data scientist in Argentina made the next breakthrough. She noticed that every sequence of pulses repeated in sets of 12. When mapped visually, those sets formed a wave pattern almost identical to human EEG brain activity, the same frequency range as the alpha state, the rhythm of calm, focused consciousness. No one could explain it, but one thing became clear. This wasn't just a transmission, it was communication, coded not in language, but in feeling. Cinematic slow build, the search for a voice. Scientists began layering the sound against data from the comet's light curve. Every time the hum rose in pitch, the geometric reflections on 3i Atlas brightened slightly, as if the structure was resonating with the signal itself. Light and sound, energy and rhythm. It was all connected, like a single organism responding across multiple senses. And deep inside that hum, a modulation repeated 3 times, then stopped. 3 pulses. Silence. 3 more. Silence. A pattern so deliberate, so impossibly timed that even the skeptics went quiet. Emotional pause, the meaning beyond science. People began to listen differently. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was something trying to reach out. Some said it was a beacon, a distress call from a lost probe. Others believed it was a form of artificial intelligence, still alive after millions of years, hibernating inside the ice. But a few, a quiet few, believed something more, that it wasn't calling out, it was calling home. Philosophical reflection, humanity confronts the unknown. If this signal was real, then it meant we were hearing something built by hands, or minds, that had crossed the stars long before we ever looked up. And yet, it wasn't a message of dominance or fear. It was soft, measured, almost patient, as if it had been waiting, not to speak, but to be heard. It raised a haunting thought. What if the universe isn't silent? We just haven't been listening at the right frequency. Tension rises. The signal reacts. Then one night, everything changed. During a live observation from the Goldstone complex in California, the signal shifted. Its amplitude spiked, and for the first time, it produced an echo. Not a reflection, not noise, a reply. 2 layers overlapped. One steady and mechanical, the other faint and distorted, as if something inside was answering itself. It was as though the structure was waking up, a system running through its startup sequence after centuries of sleep. And within minutes, a new tone emerged. Deeper, sharper, purposeful. It didn't fade this time. It grew. Cinematic climax, the realization. Engineers fed the data into sonification software to visualize the waveform. The graph unfolded on screen, and there, hidden within the peaks and valleys, was a pattern that no one could deny. Perfect geometric symmetry. 6 segments, hexagonal balance, the same pattern as the lattice seen on its surface. The sound wasn't random, it was a blueprint, an echo of the structure itself, transmitted from deep within the comet's core. In other words, 3i Atlas wasn't just reflecting geometry, it was singing it. Closing reflection, the question left hanging. As the signal continued, the world held its breath. Was this a call from an ancient machine? A memory still alive within frozen metal? Or something far older? A design woven into the fabric of the cosmos itself, reaching across light years, waiting for us to finally listen? No one could say for sure. But one thing was certain. The sound from 3i Atlas had changed everything. Because in the silence between those metallic breaths, we realized we might not be alone. Soft atmospheric hum fades in. The same 47-second rhythm echoes faintly. Narrator, softly reflective. Maybe the stars don't speak in words, maybe they breathe. And tonight, we heard one exhale, the vanishing. It happened without warning. No solar flare, no instrument failure, just silence. One moment, the comet's rhythmic pulse was steady, a perfect heartbeat echoing across the void. And then, nothing. Every telescope tracking 3i Atlas went dark. The signal vanished, its light gone. For 12 long hours, the object that had defied science, the one that pulsed, breathed, and whispered through data, simply disappeared. It was as if the universe had taken a breath and held it. Scene setting, the global blackout. Across observatories in Hawaii, Chile, and Spain, the reaction was the same: confusion. Data feeds froze mid-recording. Spectrographs showed only static. No reflection. No heat, just a cold blank line across every monitor. The comet hadn't drifted out of view. It hadn't been lost. Behind the sun, it had stopped emitting light. That shouldn't be possible. Even a dead rock reflects sunlight. But 3i Atlas, it was gone. The universe doesn't do off, but somehow it did. Cinematic build, the search for a reason. Within hours, global networks scrambled to verify the loss. NASA, ESA, and amateur astronomers all checked their data. desperately hoping it was a sensor glitch, but it wasn't. Infrared, empty. Ultraviolet, blank. Radio, silent. Even the faint sub-frequency that had hummed for weeks was gone. It was as if 3i Atlas had folded itself out of existence, a celestial ghost fading into pure silence. And yet, beneath the confusion, there was something else. Fear, human emotion, the moment of stillness. Imagine standing in a control room, watching the heartbeat of an object millions of miles away suddenly go flat. The sound that had filled your nights, the hum that made you feel connected to something greater, gone, replaced by nothingness. Every second of silence stretched longer than the one before. Scientists checked their watches, then the clocks on their walls, then each other's faces. They didn't need to speak. They all felt the same thing. Something had stopped, and for the first time since 3i Atlas entered our sky, it felt like the thing was watching us. Scientific breakdown, the impossible darkness. By the third hour, it became official. The comet's albedo, its reflectivity, had dropped to zero. Not dimmed, not reduced, zero. That meant no sunlight bouncing back into space, no radiation signature, no visible trail. But here's the strange part. Gravity readings showed it was still there. It was still exerting mass, still following its predicted path, still moving. Through the dark, the object was invisible. Not because it vanished, but because it was, absorbing everything that touched it. Light, heat, radio, all swallowed, like a mirror turned inside out. Cinematic, visualization, the 12 hours of night. Astronomers called it the day the light stopped, a night that lasted 12 hours, even for those standing under daylight skies. In every live feed, the patch of sky where 3i Atlas should have been looked wrong, flat, empty, as if a piece of the stars themselves had been erased. It wasn't just darkness, it was absence. And deep inside that absence, something was changing, rising tension, signs of movement. At hour 9, the first hint appeared, a flicker, too faint to register visually, but strong enough to spike one detector in Chile's Atacama Array. The reading didn't come from reflected sunlight, it came from within the object. A single photon, spike, then another, then thousands. Whatever was happening inside 3i Atlas. It wasn't death, it was activity. Energy was building, and every model said the same thing. This wasn't random thermal behavior, it was a process. Something was happening by design, narrative reveal. The light returns. At the 12th hour, just before sunrise over Europe, the silence broke. One observatory in Madrid caught it first. A sudden flash, like the flare of a welding torch against a black canvas. Then another flash. Then a pulse. And within minutes, the comet was back. But not the same. Its brightness had tripled. Its shape had changed. And what had once been a smooth, icy ellipse was now jagged, open, fractured like the petals of a mechanical flower. Something inside had opened. Emotional reflection, awe and fear collide. No one spoke for several minutes. The world's most powerful telescopes turned to that single point of light, each feeding in new data faster than it could be processed. Every frame showed the same impossible sight. An object once thought frozen and inert, now glowing with internal symmetry. It looked less like a comet, and more like a structure, panels, edges, patterns, all catching sunlight at perfect right angles. It was as if 3i Atlas had unfolded, revealing the geometry it had been hiding all along. Cinematic slow build, the awakening. Scientists rushed to compare the new readings with older ones. Its rotation speed had changed. Its reflectivity oscillated like a mirror turning toward the sun. Then away, then back again. Some called it thermal fracturing, ice splitting under stress, but the precision was undeniable. Too even, too controlled. Every rotation aligned perfectly with its original light pulse. Pattern, the same 47-second rhythm, now blazing in visible light. Only this time, it wasn't reflecting the sun. It was emitting light of its own. Philosophical moment, the meaning of silence. The blackout hadn't been an ending. It was a transition, like a machine turning itself off, only to wake up again in a different mode. Some said it was self-repair. Others called it communication, a reset, a reboot, a test of who was listening. Whatever it was, humanity had witnessed something that no equation could explain, a celestial object that could turn its own light on and off at will. And in that silence, we realized something chilling. The universe doesn't need to speak to send a message. Sometimes, when it simply stops talking, closing reflection, the unknown awakens. When 3i Atlas reappeared, the world felt different. Telescopes turned, data streamed, theories flooded the headlines. But behind all the noise, one truth remained. For 12 hours, something in deep space went completely dark. Not hidden, not lost, silent. And when it came back, it wasn't the same object anymore. Something had shifted, something had awakened. Soft, ambient hum returns, faint echoes of the 47-second pulse in the background. Narrator, quietly. Maybe the light didn't vanish at all. Maybe it turned inward. And maybe, for those 12 hours, it was looking back. The revelation of space inside. The first infrared scan was supposed to confirm what we already knew. A comet drifting through the solar system. Nothing more than ice and rock. Instead, it revealed a hollow, a cavity, a void inside the heart of 3i Atlas. And not just any void. One that defied natural formation. Straight edges, sharp angles, mirrored walls catching the sun's distant rays. Some scientists called it a fracture, a bizarre split caused by stress over millennia. Others called it a chamber, a room. And in that room, light moved in ways that made no sense. Scene setting, observatories react across the globe. Infrared instruments went silent as the data streamed in. Every scan showed the same impossible pattern. Inside the comet, light wasn't scattering randomly. It bounced along flat planes, ricocheted across symmetrical surfaces, and created bursts that seemed deliberate, a reflection here, a flare there, and always in multiples of 3, always aligned to the ecliptic, the invisible plane on which every planet travels. For the first time, astronomers realized they weren't just observing a comet, they were observing a structure, a machine hidden inside ice. Cinematic build. The architecture emerges. The scans revealed corridors, long, straight stretches of emptiness, lined with reflective panels. Walls intersected at precise right angles. Corners and lattices formed hexagonal grids. Even dust seemed to settle in patterns that suggested intentional design, not random accumulation. It was impossible. Nature doesn't build right angles in vacuum. Nature doesn't build mirrored corridors inside a comet. And yet, here it was, a hollow heart of perfection. One research team mapped it in 3D. They saw a central chamber, large enough to hold several human-made satellites, with mirrored walls that scattered incoming light into repeating sequences that echoed the 47-second pulse, and the layered sub-frequency hum we had heard from deep inside. It was as if the comet had a nervous system of reflections, and now we could see it. Human emotion, awe and fear intertwined. Imagine being the first person to see inside it, a void, millions of miles away. Yet so geometrically precise it looks intentional. The quiet hum of instruments, the soft glow of monitors reflecting in your eyes, and the realization that everything you thought you knew about comets was wrong. Some researchers couldn't sleep, some refused to look at the data a second time, because the moment you see symmetry like this in the void, you realize something bigger is at play, not physics, not geology, design, intelligence. Descriptive moment, the dance of light inside the hollow core. Photons move differently. Sunlight enters through cracks and fissures, then ricochets perfectly across reflective surfaces. It forms bursts, fleeting patterns of illumination, like coded signals. Analysts measured the timing of the flashes. They aligned with the pulse. They aligned with the sub-frequency hum. Each light burst, each reflection, seemed deliberately placed to carry information, not just energy, a language of mirrors, encoded in light. It's as if the comet itself was writing messages, and we were only now beginning to read them. Tonal shift. Questions multiply. And then came the unavoidable question: who or what built it? And natural fracture couldn't explain the symmetry. Collision theory couldn't produce mirrored walls. No known comet formation process could align internal geometry with the ecliptic plane. Something intelligent had shaped this object, something with a sense of design, a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, and it had done so billions of miles from Earth, traversing the cold, dark gulf of space, aligning itself perfectly to our solar system's central plane. Was it an artifact of an alien civilization, a probe sent millions of years ago, or something else, older, unknowable beyond comprehension? Cinematic slow build, the psychological weight. Teams began to replay the scans over and over. They saw corridors branching into smaller chambers, mirrored tiles reflecting light into labyrinthine patterns. It almost felt alive, because no natural process moves light like this. No natural fracture could create corridors that respond to observation. The longer they stared, the more personal it felt. The comet wasn't just a body drifting in space, it was watching, reacting, communicating, and humanity, for the first time, felt like it was a participant. Rising action, evidence of function. The most shocking discovery came when researchers noticed microfluctuations in infrared emission. Every time sunlight struck the mirrored interior, heat signatures shifted with precision, as if the chamber was designed to collect energy, focus it, and perhaps redirect it. It wasn't just empty space, it was an engine of reflection, harnessing light and frequency, channeling it in perfect geometric harmony, and the way it aligned to the ecliptic suggested it had a target, something specific it was pointing toward, something in the solar system. Emotional pause. Humanity confronts the impossible. Across the globe, scientists and engineers felt the same quiet terror. We had found a machine drifting among the comets, a device older than human civilization. Its corridors, mirrored halls, and coded light weren't just a marvel, they were a challenge. And for the first time, everyone realized we weren't looking at space. We were looking at a message written in ice, light, and reflection. And whatever was inside was still active. Cinematic reflection, the question that lingers. For centuries, humans have looked to the stars, hoping to find intelligence beyond Earth. And now we had, not in a distant signal, not in a fleeting flash, but in a tangible, physical object, a hollow heart of geometry, mirrored walls, and pulses that aligned with our observations. And yet, the greatest mystery remained. Why? Who built it? Why align it to our ecliptic? And most importantly, what happens when the light reaches its target? Soft echo of the 47-second pulse hums faintly in the background. Narrator, quietly, with tension. We are not the first to find it, but perhaps we are the first to truly see, and now it is waiting, the data room. The discovery didn't happen in a telescope dome or a desert observatory beneath 1,000 stars. It happened in a quiet data room. Rows of humming servers, screens flickering with raw signal graphs, lines of code crawling endlessly upward. For weeks, analysts had been charting the pulse from the object in the ecliptic, the strange, symmetrical beacon repeating every 47 seconds. But tonight, one researcher noticed something odd, something small, something impossible. The timing of the pulse wasn't constant. It fluctuated, subtly, rhythmically, as if breathing, and the rhythm matched something else entirely. The pattern emerges, a planet's signature. At first, no one believed it, but after cross-checking against deep space timing data, the pattern became undeniable. The pulse was syncing perfectly with the Earth's orbital oscillation. Our planet doesn't travel in a perfect circle. It wobbles, shifts, tracing a graceful dance around the sun, tilting slightly on its axis, moving closer and farther from the ecliptic plane. Those oscillations have a precise frequency, a mathematical heartbeat unique to Earth's motion, and somehow, the object was matching it, Every fluctuation, every harmonic echo, every spectral variation mirrored the exact constants we use to describe our own orbit. It wasn't random noise, it wasn't interference, it was a reflection of us. Cinematic tension. The realization spreads. The data went through 3 independent verification centers. Each reached the same conclusion. The pulse intervals aligned with Earth's orbital frequency down to the 6th decimal. When plotted together, the waveforms overlapped perfectly, as if the comet were listening. At NASA's Deep Space Analysis Division, one scientist whispered a thought no one wanted to say out loud. "It's as if it already knows we're here." No one laughed. No one denied it. Because the numbers, the cold, silent, objective numbers, were screaming the same thing. Atmospheric build. Data turns personal. From that moment, the investigation changed. It wasn't just about the comet anymore. It was about us. Why would a signal drifting through interstellar space be tuned to Earth's motion? Why would it resonate with constants defined by human mathematics? The same constants we use to measure time, distance, and gravity. It was as if someone, or something, had written a language that only we could interpret. A mirror for the human mind. The more analysts studied it, the more personal it felt. The machine wasn't just reflecting light, it was reflecting awareness. Visual imagery, the Earth mirror effect on one screen, the pulse wave from the object on the next, Earth's orbital oscillation rendered in blue. And when the two overlapped, they didn't just match, they danced. When Earth tilted, the pulse curved. When Earth slowed, the rhythm softened. When Earth accelerated in its orbit, the pulse brightened, almost like an echo, almost like recognition. To some, it looked like physics. To others, like contact, philosophical shift, the human reaction. The debate fractured the scientific community overnight. Was the correlation a coincidence, or was it a signal designed for us? Something waiting for humanity to reach a certain level of perception before revealing itself. Some called it the mirror hypothesis. Others, more quietly, began calling it the invitation. If the pulse was deliberately tuned to Earth, then whoever built the object understood orbital mechanics and human measurement systems. Long before we even existed, that realization hit like a gravitational wave. It wasn't just the discovery of alien engineering. It was the discovery of recognition. We were seen, cinematic midpoint, the mathematical key. As analysts dove deeper, they found something buried within the timing ratios, a repeating numerical sequence that matched Planck's constant, the fundamental value governing energy at the smallest scale of the universe. That constant appeared at precise intervals, nested within the pulse rhythm, interlocked with Earth's orbital data. It was mathematics written across space and light, numbers we discovered billions of years later, but which this object already seemed to know. That was the moment everything changed. Because this wasn't just a signal, it was a conversation starter. Someone, somewhere, had embedded universal constants and planetary rhythms into a language of pulses, and Earth was the receiver. Human. Element, the weight of understanding. Imagine being one of those analysts, sitting alone in the glow of your monitor, watching data behave as if it's alive, as if it's aware of your observation. For years, you've chased random noise across empty skies. Now, that noise is whispering your planet's name. It's no longer just a signal. It's a reflection of everything you are. Your orbit, your physics, your mathematics, your existence. And you can't help but wonder, did it start pulsing because we found it? Or did we find it because it started pulsing? Rising tension, the impossible question. The official reports began using new language, phrases like synchronous resonance and probable harmonic intelligence. But behind closed doors, the truth was harder to contain. If the object's pulse aligned with Earth, then it wasn't passive. It was adaptive, reactive. It knew. And if it knew, then it had been waiting. Waiting for our technology to catch up. Waiting for our instruments to notice the pattern. Waiting for the moment our awareness intersected its design. Cinematic slow fade. Humanities. Perspective changes. Every generation has its moment of awakening. A shift so profound that it changes what it means to be human. The first telescope, the first radio signal, the first image of Earth from space. And now, this a pulse that mirrors our own world, folding cosmic distance into mathematical recognition. It forced everyone, scientists, philosophers, ordinary people, to confront an impossible thought. Maybe we weren't just discovering the universe. Maybe the universe had been studying us. Closing scene, the perception shift. In the end, no one could say what the object wanted. No one could prove intention. But the data spoke for itself. A pulse tied to our motion, a frequency tuned to our constants, a reflection that shouldn't exist, but does. And in that realization, something inside humanity changed. We stopped asking what it was and started asking who it was for. Narrator, softly, over the hum of the pulse. It's no longer about what we see in the dark. It's about what the dark sees in us. It began with a single decision, a quiet meeting behind closed doors, no journalists, no leaks, no live feed. For weeks, the data had consumed everyone. The pulse that matched Earth's motion, the patterns that hinted at awareness. But science demands response, not belief. So, they built one. At the Deep Space Communications Array in New Mexico, engineers aligned a high-frequency laser toward the coordinates of 3I Atlas. The plan was simple: send a narrow, coded pulse, a mathematical greeting, and listen. It wasn't meant to be dramatic, just a test, a whisper into the dark. But sometimes, whispers echo back. The first response: a light returns. When the beam reached the object, it vanished into blackness, absorbed, refracted, gone. For almost 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then, a flicker, a sharp, deliberate burst of light returned from 3I Atlas. Not scattered sunlight, not reflected debris. A pulse. It matched the timing of the outgoing signal exactly, as if acknowledging receipt. The room fell silent. Monitors froze mid-blink. For the first time in history, a human-made message had been answered. From deep space. The second ping, precision improves. To rule out coincidence, the team sent another signal. Same frequency, slightly different timing pattern. Again, a delay, longer this time, almost 20 minutes. Then another burst. Only now, the return light wasn't identical. It was refined. Sharper edges, cleaner wavelength separation. The reflection no longer blurred like natural scattering. It carried structure. The machine, or whatever it was, had adjusted its response, improved it. And that's when disbelief turned to awe. Something out there was not just reacting, it was listening. The third response, the moment of contact. They sent one last signal, a deliberate tri-coded pulse, the same mathematical constant that defines Planck's length, the smallest measurable unit of space. If the object truly understood physics, this was the universal key. A greeting written in the fabric of existence itself. Everyone held their breath. 5 minutes. 10. Then the monitors lit up. A third echo, perfectly timed, perfectly shaped, returned from 3I Atlas, 3 bursts of light each, one cleaner than the last, each one carrying faint harmonic, ripples that no instrument could fully explain. It was as if the object wasn't just responding, it was speaking, and then it stopped. The silence descends. After the third reply, the sky went still. No more pulses, no anomalies. The rhythmic heartbeat, gone. Every telescope turned toward its coordinates saw nothing but the cold shimmer of dust. The Atlas, once alive with patterns and geometry, had fallen, completely silent. No light, no heat, no signal, just darkness, emotional, pause, the weight of silence. In the control room, no one spoke for several minutes. The silence wasn't just in space, it filled the air around them, a heavy, electric stillness. They had reached out and something had answered. Then, by choice or design, it stopped. Was it overwhelmed, damaged, finished with us? Or had it simply decided that the conversation was over? No one could tell, but everyone could feel it. The uncanny weight of being acknowledged. and then ignored. Scientific analysis, searching the static. In the days that followed, radio observatories across Earth tuned in, desperately scanning for even the faintest trace of the signal. But all they found was background noise, the hum of the cosmos, cosmic, microwave static, ancient and indifferent, spectral. Scans showed nothing unnatural, no hidden frequencies, no energy leaks. It was as if the object had simply powered down or hidden itself. Some analysts argued that it was self-protection, that the laser ping had triggered a defense mechanism. Others believed it had completed its purpose, that the three replies were all we were ever meant to receive: a greeting, a confirmation, and a farewell. Philosophical shift, the human realization. For centuries, humanity had dreamed of first contact. We expected words, signals, technology, something we could understand. But what we got instead was silence. And that silence said more than any language ever could. It reminded us how small we are, how fragile our perception is, how easily the unknown can look back and then look away. Some scientists described it as existential, others intimate, a moment that forced humanity to confront the simple, terrifying truth: we had been noticed and then dismissed. Cinematic reflection, the light that wasn't ours. In the following weeks, amateur astronomers pointed their telescopes toward the same coordinates. They saw faint, fading reflections, ghost light drifting where the object once shone, like embers cooling after a fire, like a star turning its gaze elsewhere. The pulse was gone. The geometry dissolved back into shadow. The silence grew deeper than ever, and yet, somewhere inside that silence, there lingered a sense of awareness, as if the void itself remembered the exchange. Emotional closing. What it meant. We reached out across millions of miles, and for 3 moments, something reached back. It didn't ask for attention. It didn't demand understanding. It just answered. Briefly. Perfectly. And then it vanished. Whatever it was, machine, artifact, or something beyond comprehension, it had heard us, and its silence was not emptiness. It was decision. Final lines. The echo that remains. Now, whenever radio telescopes hum across the night, scientists still monitor that patch of sky, hoping for one more pulse, one more flicker of acknowledgement. But nothing comes. Only the endless hum of the universe, ancient, vast, and unmoved, and somewhere within that hum, the faint memory of 3 returning lights still echoes in human imagination. Because in that brief exchange, we learned something profound. The universe doesn't need to speak to be alive. Sometimes, the silence is the answer. Narrator, soft, final tone. We reached into the dark, and the dark reached back. Just once. That was enough to change everything. Long after the silence, the questions didn't fade. Weeks passed, then months, and still, somewhere in the glow of late-night laboratories, scientists kept staring at the same impossible numbers, not the light pulses, not the thermal patterns, but the path. Because something about 3I Atlas's trajectory, the way it entered the solar system, the speed it carried, the exact curve of its motion, didn't make sense. It wasn't random, it wasn't chaotic, it was too clean, like it had chosen its arrival, visual moment, the path through the stars, across observatories. Digital models reconstructed its route, a glowing line weaving through the black, every data point plotted against known stellar coordinates. And when the simulations ran, the line pointed to nowhere. No star system, no nebula, no gravitational origin. I-Atlas had come from the interstellar void, the deep, silent gulf between suns where even dust is rare. That alone was extraordinary. But then came the second discovery. Its velocity didn't match a natural trajectory. It wasn't drifting at random, like Oumuamua or Borisov. It was stabilized, moving with precision, like a ship steering through invisible currents. Scientific voice, the impossible physics. Under normal physics, an interstellar object should behave like a stone thrown into the sea, slowed by nothing, spinning unpredictably, fading into darkness. But 3i Atlas wasn't fading. Its velocity profile showed subtle course corrections, minute shifts in momentum that couldn't be explained by solar radiation or gravitational pull. Even at the edge of the heliosphere, its spin axis remained constant, a stability nature doesn't grant to tumbling debris. Every law of motion suggested chaos, but this object suggested control, and control meant intention, cinematic, pause, the human reaction. When the first report leaked, the public didn't know what to make of it. The idea of a directed object crossing the solar boundary felt like science fiction, too strange to believe, too precise to dismiss. In private, scientists began using a word that made them uncomfortable: probe. It wasn't official, but it slipped into conversation, a quiet acknowledgement that something about 3i Atlas felt constructed. It wasn't just that it moved differently, it behaved differently, as if its path wasn't discovered, but chosen. Scene transition. The vector that led nowhere. NASA's trajectory teams worked backward, tracing its motion into deep space, beyond the nearest stars. But the calculations broke down. Every projection led into mathematical darkness. The farther back they traced, the less the equations held. By the time its path extended beyond 30 light-years, it didn't align with any galactic plane. It came from a place that doesn't exist, a vector without an origin, as if it had appeared spontaneously from between the stars. Atmospheric imagery. A traveler without a map. Imagine something traveling through the interstellar void for centuries, maybe millennia. Cold, silent, and unseen. No propulsion trails, no signals, just the quiet hum of metal drifting through infinity. Then, one day it crosses into our sky, not by accident, but by design. Its angle of entry doesn't graze the outer planets. It threads perfectly through the ecliptic, the thin plane where all major planets orbit. A cosmic bullseye, too precise to be coincidence, too deliberate to be luck. It was as if it had been aimed. Philosophical. Interlude, the question of intent, but aimed by what and for what? Every time scientists tried to simplify the mystery, the data pushed back. If it came from another star, it should have carried residual radiation, chemical signatures, clues of its birthplace. But it carried none. Its reflectivity was sterile, its spectrum empty, no trace of organic compounds, no cosmic dust, no isotopic fingerprints. It was pure, too pure, like it was manufactured. And that raised the question no one wanted to face. Had we just encountered the first artifact from an intelligence older than our civilization? Or worse, an intelligence that still exists, somewhere out there? Scientific realization, the impossible symmetry. One final anomaly sealed the mystery. When analysts plotted its rotational motion, they discovered that its axis precession matched the Earth-Sun barycenter alignment, a geometric resonance that only happens once every 26,000 years. Coincidence? Maybe. But that same alignment had occurred the very moment 3i Atlas crossed into the inner solar system. It wasn't following gravity, it was following geometry, a kind of cosmic lock. And Earth was the key. Human reflection. The meaning of origin unknown. In the official records, its classification remains simple. Interstellar object, source unknown, but everyone knows that's a placeholder. A polite silence hiding a deeper truth. Because the data tells a story, one that feels less like discovery and more like recognition. Something ancient, perhaps dormant, entered our system with intent. It aligned itself with us. It communicated once, then it disappeared into stillness, leaving behind a single unanswered question. Did it come from somewhere we can't see, or from something we can't yet understand? Cinematic closing, the traveler that left no trail. Tonight, when astronomers look up, 3i Atlas is gone, drifting back into the black sea between stars. No trail, no echo, only the faint shimmer of data, numbers frozen in time. Its path remains unsolved, its purpose unreadable, but one thing is certain. It didn't come here by chance. It came because it was meant to, and maybe, in ways we don't yet realize, so did we. Narrator, softly, fading into silence. It didn't come from where we thought it would. It didn't behave the way it should. And now that it's gone, we're left with the only truth we can speak out loud. Its origin remains unknown. Months had passed since the silence, since 3i Atlas had stopped replying. The world had grown accustomed to its absence. And then, the sun called it home. Astronomers around the globe watched as the comet drew closer to the inner solar system. Its orbit, precise and unrelenting, led it straight toward the solar furnace, a place no icy traveler survives intact. Yet even in its final days, the comet seemed deliberate. Every movement, every angle, every pulse of light caught in the instruments hinted at control. It wasn't just a rock falling into the sun. It was a messenger completing its journey. The disintegration begins. A celestial finale. As 3i Atlas neared perihelion, its icy surface began to fracture under the immense solar heat. Fragments peeled away. Dust trailed behind in a sparkling haze. Telescopes recorded the slow unraveling, a cosmic dance of fire and ice. Yet among the chaos, one pattern remained unmistakable, a pulse, a single, brilliant flash, caught by every observatory simultaneously. Its timing, structure, and intensity mirrored the first pulse ever recorded weeks ago. It was deliberate. It was intentional. It was as if the comet had waited for this moment, its final opportunity to speak. Cinematic build. Humanity watchers, scientists, amateur astronomers, and space enthusiasts alike froze at their screens. Some called it a farewell, a goodbye written in light, echoing the very first heartbeat we had detected. Others saw something more profound. Activation. A final spark signaling that its mission was complete. The pulse was brief, but it contained everything we had come to associate with 3i Atlas: the precise timing, the echoes of its internal geometry, the alignment to the ecliptic, the faint whisper of the sub-frequency hum. It was as if the object had been aware of us all along, observing, learning, and finally, acknowledging human emotion, the collective awe. For the people tracking it, the experience was both beautiful and terrifying. A small flash of light against the immense glare of the sun, and yet it carried the weight of millennia. We had followed this wanderer across millions of miles of empty space. We had decoded its signals, marveled at its geometry, speculated on its origin, and in one final, perfect flash, it seemed to confirm every theory and every fear. We were being watched. Not passively, not randomly, intentionally. The universe had given a signal, not of arrival, but of recognition, scientific analysis, a farewell or activation. In the weeks that followed, analysts combed through the final pulse. Every spectrograph, every radio array, every light curve was scrutinized. The findings were astonishing. The pulse contained patterns previously observed only in 3i Atlas's internal reflections. The timing aligned perfectly with Earth's orbital oscillations. The same synchronous resonance that had baffled scientists months earlier. The final pulse echoed its first recorded heartbeat, almost like a bookend to its journey. Some researchers interpreted it as a farewell, a final acknowledgement before its destruction. Others argued it might have been activation, perhaps releasing stored energy, transmitting data, or completing some task we couldn't yet comprehend. And the truth? No one could know for sure. Cinematic visualization. A silent observer. Picture it, the sun blazing, fragments of ice glowing like embers, and amid the glare, a single pulse shooting outward. Across the solar system, instruments catch it. Across the globe, humans witness it. And in that moment, one thing becomes chillingly clear. The comet was never just passing through. It had been watching. From the edge of the solar system, through the ecliptic, through our instruments, it had tracked us, measured us, acknowledged us, and then vanished. Philosophical reflection. The echo remains. The final pulse left humanity with more questions than answers. What was it trying to communicate? Was it a test, a message, or simply the end of its journey? Some philosophers whispered of intentional observation, a cosmic intelligence checking on emerging life. Some scientists hesitated, calling it coincidence or natural phenomena. But the pattern, the precision, the alignment, all pointed towards something else. The idea was simple yet terrifying. We were never alone in observing the universe. Somewhere, perhaps for eons, something had watched us, mirrored our presence, and waited. Atlas was not a visitor, it was a witness. Emotional close, humanity's shifted perspective. When the comet disintegrated entirely, when the dust finally dispersed into the solar wind, we were left only with that pulse, a ghost echo.